For joining us for the February NRS webinar. Today we have a few presentations for you all. We want to focus today on our extension programs, data quality, upcoming reports. So we hope that you get a lot of information from today's session. So without further delay, I'm going to go ahead and toss the ball to Shannon.
Thank you. So good afternoon. Today, as Joy mentioned, we will be talking about data quality and how to improve the quality of reporting on extension capacity funded programs. My name is Shannon Horrillo, and I am the Division Director for the Division of Youth and 4-H within the Institute of Youth, Family, and Community. And Solomon, you're on mute. And with me, I have Solomon Haile, who's working to be able to introduce himself, but I'll show a little bit about, oh, there you are, Solomon, go ahead.
Thank you, Shannon. My name is Solomon Haile. I'm the program leader in the Division of Community and Education within the IYFC. Today, we'll be discussing about data quality with Shannon.
Thank you. So our agenda is as follows. After a brief overview of capacity grant reporting cycle in the NIFA reporting system, we will focus on data quality and the type of information that, when included, really enhances the quality of the information provided about how you utilize extension capacity funds. And we'll be focusing on program initiation, results, and annual report of accomplishments. We will also have some time for wrap up and questions and comments. So I'm sure you've seen this slide before. And so just wanted to highlight a few points. Extension initiates programs to implement the approved state or institution plan of work. And it's really up to the LGU to determine how many extension programs they need to initiate and how many programs and what those programs are going to be in order to accomplish the plan of work. So some of you out there may be lumpers and some may be splitters in terms of thinking about your programs. And so there needs to be a happy medium. So I just want to share some tips and ways of thinking about this. So you probably don't want to be an extreme splitter and report every activity that you do as a program, because then it's going to be very difficult to report high quality results that not only show knowledge and behavior change, but also condition changes or longer term impacts. So if they're very small, minute activities, again, it will be very difficult to talk about how those activities are leading to some broader economic or environmental or social condition change. You also probably don't want to be an extreme lumper, which means reporting a bunch of programs together. And that is because it can be challenging then to report the level of detail. You know, you have word limits, character limits, report the level of detail that's needed to justify the allocation of ARERA funds to the institutions as you work on the annual report of accomplishments. So again, that happy medium is where you'll want to look for. And I want to emphasize that the quality is more important than the quantity. I'm also going to turn to a definition that I think will help provide some additional clarity. You may have seen this before. I'm going to highlight some pieces that are important to today's conversation. So an extension program is a set of activities that advance a common goal. And if you have a critical issue that's broader in scope, you may have more programs than if you have critical issues that are more narrowly defined. And again, those programs really set boundaries around distinct activities that advance a common goal and advance knowledge and behavior change, as well as a desired change in environment that is identified in the critical issue. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Solomon to talk a little bit about program initiation and what data quality looks like at the program initiation step. Solomon, you're on mute again.
Sorry about that. Thank you again, Shannon. Like Shannon said, the extension program is a vehicle to address the critical issues. So the question here is, does the program addresses critical issue in the state that as is identified by the stakeholders. The program starts with the program initiation. As partner, NIFA wants to collaborate with you to optimize the efficiency, increase the quality of data that's being collected, and resolve the data quality problems in this extension program. So we start from the program initiation. In this slide, as you can see, we are focusing in 4 of the fields out of the many that are listed in the guideline. These 4 are the major ones that you are required to input more characters or words in the fields. So the first 2 will take more time on the title and also on the non-technical summary. With regard to the integrated activities and multi-states, those kind of program extension programs are not so many. Basically, what you have to know is both the extension funds for the 1890 and also for the 1862, by law, they are required to spend part of the fund for these projects or for these programs. But the 1862, in addition to those, there is a minimum percentage that they have to fulfill, about 25% of the fund. So having said that, these are not a lot of them in the extension programs. Next, please. So when we try to see what NIFA does with regard to data quality in the program initiation, mainly we do administrative review. In this administrative review, we try to ensure 3 important aspects. The first aspect is, of course, to make sure the program is compliant with the purpose of the fund source and also federal law, as well as the NIFA guidelines. Second is to ensure the program aligns with the mission of the NIFA, and also if it is relevant to the food and agriculture science as it's defined in ARERA. And the third one is to make sure that these funds are used consistent with the submitted and approved 5-year plan of work. Next, please. So this table, you will find it in your guide for the NIFA reporting system, except the last column is added here. So basically, the important thing that I want to cover here is the title. The title with regard to this, NIFA reviews the title just to check the spelling and typo errors and appropriateness of this title, which will be shared publicly. But to ensure the quality of the data, as extension specialist, I think we can produce optimal results and also increase the quality if we can check before we finalize our title for several things. This could include whether the title is specific enough to the target audience, or it's to the skill and level of the audience, and also if it explains the benefits of the program objective, if it's easy to read and remember. Those are very important, as you can know for the participants in the program. Is there any grammatical error in there? The right expectation, is it have a message of the right expectation of the program? Does it have fulfill the character requirements that are in the field? Of course, that is going to be automatically checked. Next, please. So the next one is the technical or the non-technical summary. In this one, what is really mean non-technical summary? It equates, we are trying to summarize our work to audience which have no any special or expert knowledge in the area. So it's really a very important section of your program. It is going to be read by a wide range of audience. This includes the legislator, the public in general, the community leaders, government staff, and other scientists. So it's very important for us to really sell our program beside the requirements of the review. But for the NIFA review, we also make sure that we have included these 4 points, whether the issue is stated well and why it's important, the goals and objectives, the target audience and how they are going to be benefiting from that, and how the activity is going to lead to the outcome described to achieve those goals and objectives. Beside those, we also look into the compliance of the specific fund source. I will give you an example what I'm referring here. Each of these funds, they have specific restrictions, what we need to include or not. Next, please. So here we have an example that if you see this, the non-technical summary, it's just one line of sentence. So do you think this kind of non-technical summary is enough based on the things that I have tried to list before? You can answer your answers on the chat, but definitely this is not the case to be approved. So what happened to this one is it was deferred and returned to the institution, advised to include all the components, and the revised part of this non-technical summary looks like this. It could be improved more to with data quality aspect, but from where it starts, it's a big improvement in data. Next, please. As I mentioned, the different source of the funds, they have restrictions. In this case, we are looking, it has all the components that we said, you know, the 4 points, but what is trying to do is a virtual study abroad, which is a mentoring course. So basically in this particular fund source, it doesn't allow college course funding, so which is a formal teaching. I know there is a gray line between the formal and informal, but this is very clearly, it's a college course that will not be allowed to be funded. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Solomon. So now I'm going to turn to the results reporting. And there are 4 fields in the results reporting that we're going to focus on today. And I really want to draw your attention to what's in orange. And so when you're reporting results, we're really looking at capturing the issue, the activities that are going to be undertaken to address those issues, along with outputs, followed by outcomes, which would be changes in knowledge or changes in behavior, and then condition changes known as impacts and or public value statements. So turning to the issue first, this is an opportunity to really expand upon the non-technical summary that Solomon just described and you provided during the program initiation phase. So when I've reviewed and when our team has reviewed reports from the land-grant universities, there are a couple areas that when this information is included really enhances the quality of the reporting. And I've identified these 3 in the bullets here. So describing the challenge, the needs, the issue, the opportunity facing the target audience, and importantly, providing research data or other information that documents that need, because ultimately that helps to make a convincing argument for why financial resources should be and need to be invested in addressing this issue through extension programs. So next, I'm going to share a case study of the Beginning Farmer Training Program. And as I read through this, think about what would enhance the reporting. Feel free to type your answers in the chat pod for some interaction. We won't go through them, but if you want to engage and others can see what you're putting. So in thinking about this question that's posed to you first around the issue, I'm going to read what was written. Beginning farmer programs are designed to assist those interested in growing crops while also developing a farm business. The programs emphasize hands-on training, and participants do not need any farming experience before attending the programs. So this program, and hopefully you're thinking the same thing, this program could be enhanced by more fully describing the need, providing some data to back that up, and really making that convincing argument. So some questions that come up for me when I read this that would help do that and improve this reporting would be, how do you know there's a need to have a program that helps people learn to grow crops? Do people currently lack knowledge, and how do you know this? Perhaps food insecurity is an issue, or is there an identified need to have more farmers? That's probably the case, but why is this important, and how do you know this information? What is the age of the farmers? What does the workforce look like, etc.? So that type of information would enhance this reporting. So next, I'm not going to go through this, but every now and then I'll show a high quality response that checks all the boxes that you could really refer back to at a later time as you're preparing your own reports. So next, I'm going to go into activities. So again, reading reporting, the 3 bullets that I've added here really do enhance the quality of reporting in response to activities that were done to achieve the goals. So one would be describing who the audience is. What are the ages? What's the geographic scope or the demographics of the target audience that you're trying to serve through this program? Describe the program. What is it? What does it do? Describe the activities and be sure to quantify them, providing the outputs. So how many people were reached? How many new methods and technology were produced? What about new products, patents, plant or animal varieties? New practical knowledge for policy decision makers? Were there briefs provided? How many? How many presentations? Over what time span? What about workshops, field days? So these are all very common activities, but be sure to describe them and also quantify them. How many? So let's turn to another case study. And so again, either type in the chat pod for some interaction with others that are listening in, or think about what would improve this reporting as I read it. So this one is around 4-H. So 4-H provides educational experiences for youth who are involved, helping them develop self-confidence, grow team building skills, learn to problem solve, interact with the public, and become involved in their communities. In the past year, the 4-H program provided many online experiences where youth could either participate, exhibit products or projects, or assist with planning and implementing the event. As we move toward more in-person experiences, youth continue to grow in the project skill areas as well as other areas of growth. So as I review this, some of the things that I think would enhance the reporting would be a better description of the target audience. Who are the youth? What's their ages? What about demographics or geographic information? The program description would be enhanced by including what content or project skill areas are being offered. Who delivered the program? How many staff or volunteers were involved in delivering the program? How many youth were reached by the specific activities and overall in this program? So all of that information would paint a more thorough and enhanced description of the activities. So next, I'm going to turn to outcomes. And so, again, there are 3 things that when I looked at reports, I believe would enhance the quality of reporting overall if included consistently. So what are the changes in knowledge or behavior changes that occurred as a result of the program? So here we're moving beyond outputs and really talking about how this work has changed the people's lives that were involved in the program. And be sure to provide quantitative or qualitative data. It is wonderful when we receive that kind of information and we can tell your story utilizing the data that you provided to us. And then also knowing how you know this. Did you do surveys? Did you observe? And that's how you came up with the outcomes. What about case studies? There's a number of different methods that are used to measure outcomes. And so telling us a little bit about that also helps us understand how you're coming up with those outcomes. And then again, when we tell your story, we do a much more thorough job of articulating what you've done. So again, we're going to turn to a case study. This one is horticulture. Again, feel free to type in the chat pod as you think about what would improve this reporting. So limited resource clients were able to grow food for personal consumption and to supplement their meager income, while entrepreneurial clients of the program with limited space utilized this production method to reduce imports while offering fresh produce to their customers. So it's wonderful. They've talked about growing food for personal consumption, and that's important. So how do we know, why did this change come about? Is it because they increased in their knowledge, or did they change their behavior? And so is it because people learned how to plant, what to plant at different times of year based on the climate that they're in? Or did they increase their knowledge of how to test soil and adjust pH and soil nutrients? Or did they actually change their behavior practices? Maybe they improved their IPM practices. So that kind of information on the knowledge and behavior change that occurred in the program would help us understand how this outcome came to be. Additionally, there's a chat that is accurate there and wonderful. So surveys include an increase in behavior change. Perfect. So the data and how it's measured. Was everyone able to grow food for personal consumption? And how do you know that? Was that self-reported? Did you weigh every participant's food for supplementing their income? Did they save in food costs? That could be something that is measured. So how do you know that they saved and were able to supplement their income? And also with imports, reducing imports. How much were imports reduced? Was there a cost saving, if any, to the entrepreneurial clients who did reduce imports? So those are some areas. Again, there's a number of ways that the reporter could have gone based on exactly what they're doing in the program. But without that additional information, we don't know that. And that tells a more complete picture about the wonderful work that happened. Because we know that you're probably doing all of this, but what gets reported to NIFA maybe not include all those details, but would enhance the quality of the reporting that we receive. I have included a high quality response that really checks all those boxes I've talked about for you to look at as you're preparing your results in the future or to reflect upon after today's conversation. And then the final would be the public value or impact. People may use different terms, but this is the far right-hand side of your logic model, right? So this is where you tell us what the value is of the program to the broader society and from those who did not directly participate in the program. So these would be those longer-term outcomes resulting in economic, environmental, or social condition changes. So you might say, well, how would I get that information? And so looking at the reporting, there seems to be a number of ways that individuals have done this. One, they collect their own data from their target audiences or their partners in the program. You can also use larger scale data from other agencies or organizations that do measure condition changes. Existing research that you or others have done can be used that you can make, where you can make the safe inference for how your work is contributing to that condition change, as well as explain potential or anticipated impacts. And additionally, it's important to know how we move from the knowledge or behavior change outcomes to the general benefit to the public. So connecting those dots for the reader is very helpful because not every reader, while not every reader is going to be a subject matter expert in everything. And if this information is shared more broadly, then individuals may not be subject matter experts as well. So make sure that you are connecting those dots for all potential readers of these reports. Here is an example. And I ask you to think about, from when I read this, what is the public value or the impact? And so in general, this reporting is really talking about connecting calf-cow operators to the next generation of veterinarian professionals, as well as extension professionals in a collaborative manner. And that is so important, right? So that is an additional benefit of this program in that they're being connected to the next generation. But it doesn't quite get to the condition change and the value of the program to the public. So one potential that I could throw out there, and there are, again, depending on everything else that is being reported in this program and the plan of work, A potential would be promoting economic prosperity through improved animal management, productivity, and efficiency, because that is really the core of what the program outcomes are. And for your reference, I chose a very high quality response that you can look at that does a wonderful job of talking about the condition changes or the indicators, the public value, and tying everything together. So last but not least, we have the annual report of accomplishments. I'm going to go over the first and the second, or the first and the fourth bullet, and some things to think about, kind of a check mark box that you can use to evaluate as you're putting together and completing your annual report of accomplishments. So in the executive summary, did you describe who produced the report? Providing a high-level overview of the Ag Experiment Station and Cooperative Extension Station or Cooperative Extension System that are included in those reports is extremely helpful. And if multiple institutions are reporting, articulate again what the critical issues are and provide some overarching accomplishment statements on how you did toward achieving those. Also, has anything changed since the plan of work was submitted? This would be an opportunity you can include that. Additionally, did the programs address each critical issue in the state as identified by the stakeholders? So if you have 5 critical issues and you're only addressing 3, then the question is, well, extension has identified these other critical issues, but why aren't they addressing them? What's going on there? So if you have things to report across each of the condition chain or each of your critical issues, please do so, because it helps everyone who's reading these reports understand how you're contributing. And not every program will be at the point where you'll want to highlight it in the annual report of accomplishments, right? So choose those that are the most high quality to report, because every program's at a different phase. Sometimes you're just starting it. Sometimes you're all the way through it. And we recognize there's that variability. And that's why you're just highlighting the high quality ones that really meet everything that Solomon and I have talked about today in the annual report of accomplishments. Double check they're well written without typos. And in the end, ask yourself, is this the information that we would want to communicate to Congress or others around what we did for the financial resources that were allocated to our institution? In the end, that's the question we want to make sure that we address. And then finally, just for wrap up, some key points. NIFA conducts an administrative review when we review everything and approve it. So we're not doing a merit review. So this is really an opportunity today for us to share all the things that we think, even though they might be getting approved, would really enhance, because in the end, we use this data to tell your story. So what story do you want us to tell? And quality matters, and we are partners in this work. So if you have any questions, we're here to support you. And with that, I will open it up to questions or comments. All right, so I do see some. Joy, I don't know if you're facilitating the chat pod. You want me to look at them?
Yes. Well, Solomon has been in the chat answering a few questions. So Solomon, do you want to speak on some of the questions that you've answered?
Yes, with regard to the coverage of food and agriculture science, according to the definition, I just posted the definition. Part of it is, I think, cut off. So if I add that one, it definitely covers a lot of area that we think are less likely related to the agriculture world and the food. So it's very important to see that definition. That's what I want to say.
We have a question in the chat for you to go back to the first high quality example that you shared.
Yes, let me go back. Let's see. This one? Yeah, and I believe everyone's going to receive these after. That's why I included them in here, but I didn't have time to go over them. So yeah, I wanted to highlight what I thought would be good quality or high quality response.
Okay, yes, it was that one. And we also have a request. Do you have an example of a perfect annual report of accomplishment submission showing how it was entered and what was entered in for each field?
So that's something that we could work with PARS
Mhm.
as we're reviewing these, maybe to put forth an example. I didn't pull a full example, but definitely I think that I've seen some that I do believe would be good examples. So I'll turn that over to PARS, but your program staff are happy to help in that.
Absolutely. And so, yes, we do plan on talking about the annual report of accomplishments during our next webinar, the March webinar in detail. And during that time, we'll be talking about high quality examples, how to enter in NRS, just going over the whole reporting piece for annual reports. So we will cover that in March. Let me see if there were any other questions before we go to our next presenter.
There's some that were in the original chat and not in the Q&A for the webinar that I saw pop up.
Okay.
One person is asking, is this report a new requirement or only required from certain institutions? And I'm not certain of, are we talking about the annual report of accomplishments in all or what?
Yes, I see Olivia just
Great.
answered
Oh,
that
thank
question in the chat, but no, it's not a new report. I can confirm, and I did repost the deadlines for all of the reports, and that can be found on our homepage. We'll make sure that we send that out in the NRS webinar recap following this meeting. So
just really quick,
Mhm.
that question came from Christy. Christy, you are with University of Washington, as far as I know, and the annual report is for ARERA funding, and University of Washington does not have ARERA funding. You just have, I think, McIntyre Stennis. So you do not need to worry about the annual report, but you still do need to submit results.
Okay, so thank you guys for a wonderful presentation. We still do have questions. I think Shannon and Solomon will hang back to see if they can clarify anything for you all. Like Shannon said, we will definitely get the presentation out to you guys and the recording. We do have another presentation. So thank you guys. Feel free to hang around though. We'd love for you to stay.
Yeah.
Thank you. We do have another presentation. This presentation, let me go ahead and pin you. So today we have Christian Schmieder joining us from the University of Wisconsin-Madison Division of Extension. That's a mouthful, right? I think I got it all right. And so we have asked them to come today to talk about their extension programming and how they are entering that, capturing the information, entering the data into NRS for the best possible outcome for reporting, right? That and what is unique to extension programs coming into some of the reporting, condensing programs to report. So today we have Christian to share some information and hopefully guidance and get some good feedback about that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction, Joy. I appreciate it.
No
I'm
problem.
going to share my screen here and my presentation. Can you all see the presentation screen?
We can.
Awesome. Great. So yes, today I am going to talk about how we at the Division of Extension at the University of Wisconsin-Madison scoped our critical issues and our extension programs for efficient USDA-NIFA reporting. So a quick overview. I'm first going to talk briefly about the institutional background in Wisconsin. Then I will talk a little bit about the fuzziness of the term program and what kind of opportunities and challenges that pose for us while we're finding a solution for NIFA reporting. Then I will talk about how we aligned NIFA reporting with our institutional structure. That's kind of the core of the presentation. And based on that, I will briefly touch on the shared responsibilities and the synergies and efficiencies that created for us in Wisconsin. So the institutional background in one word was change. In many more words, our organization went through a reorganization process between 2017 and 2020 that restructured our organization with a focus on creating formally managed high-level program areas. So before that, we had a lot of informal programs that were led by peer teams, and we moved to a more formal structure where we have formal program managers who are managing, they're not supervising, but they're managing our statewide programs and our statewide program clusters. So that was an opportunity for us to overhaul and rethink our processes and our approach to reporting to our federal partner. That was especially a good timing because at the same time, as you all know, NIFA also reorganized and overhauled their internal formats and processes. So that change from both sides was both the necessity and the opportunity for us to do the changes that I'm going to talk about today. Another big factor in the changes that we've made is the fuzziness of the term program. And this was shared also by Shannon and Solomon earlier, that the idea of like, what's the scope? What's the right scope for program? And for all of you who have extension experience, you all know that a program term, you can ask 20 people and get 25 definitions of what a program is. So on one end of the spectrum, a program can be a local 6-week course on a topic. For example, how to use alfalfa as a cover crop. It could also be a group of closely coordinated and branded offerings. So if we say we have an alfalfa cover crop clinic that's going to be offered in 5 different counties over the course of 2 years by 20 different educators. A program can also be an organizational response strategy. For example, all the support and all the education we do for farmers who want to improve the efficiency of their feeding in terms of financial investment and ecological impact. A program can also be an administrative umbrella for various efforts. So you can see there's more granular definitions of a program and there's less granular definitions of a program. And that can create issues when, for example, you're scanning an organization, you ask, hey, can you give me a program report? Anyone who will ask will give you a different granularity, and that can create issues both in terms of reporting against higher level program logic, and it can also create issues with unevenness of the reports and aligning them internally between each other. So what we try to do is we try to focus our definition of a program on that less granular level at an organizational response strategy level, which in our case, our organizational response strategies are clustered under these administrative umbrellas for various efforts, which we call extension programs in Wisconsin. So before I jump into the solution, I wanted to just share a few guiding principles that guided the process of reorganizing our NIFA reporting. First, we try to have an emphasis on clustering reporting around a narrative rather than reflecting the programmatic complexity of our organization. That's something that we're bumping against on all levels, and that's I think something that other organizations are probably experiencing as well, is especially if you work with practitioners who are really in their programming, it's very easy to get lost in the complexity, in the ripple effects, in the connectedness of our solutions, because that's the strength of extension solutions. It's not one-off isolated efforts, it's systemic work, but that can get in the way sometimes of clustering and reporting in a way that makes sense to folks who are not quite familiar with the intricacies of the programming. So one of our guiding principle was to emphasize clustering around a narrative. The other guiding principles was that we want to focus on more evergreen outcome-focused products rather than events initiatives with limited communicative half-life. So, for example, if Extension is conducting or offering a summit for farmers in August, and the next January reporting about it, then it's already last year's news. But if we can we can write that report around the outcomes that we're pursuing and use that summit as an illustration of that bigger outcome, then the report not only for NIFA, but also for our internal processes, becomes much more evergreen. Then it's not out of date because the outcomes still are persistent and they're still relevant. So with all that, I want to go to the changes that we made to our reporting and the alignment of reporting that we did for our current NIFA reporting. So very, very brief, very, very concisely, we aligned our reporting with our institutional structure. So we have our own organizational structure and we try to rebuild and align our federal reporting as much with that organizational structure. So for example, we have 6 institutes. One of them is the Agriculture Institute. The Agriculture Institute has an institute director. So what we did is, as a critical issue, we created a critical issue that corresponds with this institute. So we have the critical issue, Sustainable Ag Systems and Production, that relates directly to this Agriculture Institute that has, as an institute, defined high-level outcome areas and impact areas. Under our Agriculture Institute in Wisconsin, we have 6 different programs. For example, agriculture, water quality, crops and soils, and others. So these programs all have a program manager. So what we did is we initiated these programs as programs in the NIFA system. So agriculture water quality corresponds with agriculture water quality program on the NIFA program initiation side. So we basically recreated our institutional structure in the NIFA reporting system to create a series of synergies. And that's what I'm going to talk about next. So one efficiency that we created through this is that we have shared responsibilities that are clearly defined and actually grounded in institutional roles in our organization. So like I said, each institute is led by an institute director. So the institute director annually sets an institute level outcome for evaluation, reporting, and communication. They also steward the NIFA critical issue, i.e. they review it every year to make sure that the critical issue is in alignment with the organizational direction we are taking, because things always change. And the institute director also reviews and greenlights both the NIFA program initiations that are written by their program managers and the NIFA program report that are written by their program managers. So that leads us to that. Each program is led by a program manager. The program manager sets a focused program outcome that connects with the annual institute outcome. And because we're aligning our internal program planning efforts with how we report to NIFA, this actually streamlines with our institute level and program level planning. The program manager also stewards the NIFA program initiation, and they're responsible for writing the annual NIFA program report. So from a kind of managerial standpoint, that's a really great efficiency, because from my perspective as manager of this process, I have program managers who do this every year. So we're not scanning the organization, figuring out, oh, where's a great program that we could talk about? And oh, what's the level? What does a program even mean? Does it mean something down here or up here? We have the program managers who can make these decisions for us. They have institutionally that view on the organization, that knowledge of the work that's going on, so that they can decide what are the outcomes, what are the pieces that we want to pull together to create that bigger narrative. And of course, because they're doing it every year, there's the strength of repetition and of learning and of improvement, rather than going through the organization and asking folks who are maybe not in this kind of high level role to even produce these reports and talk about the work on this kind of synthetic level. So I talked already about a couple of synergies and efficiencies. I'm going to recap those and add 2 more. So one, I already said that responsibilities are built into organizational roles. That's really, really valuable for creating consistency and for creating really consistent reporting as well. Then we have a more seamless alignment of reporting and institutional direction. I mentioned that also already. And this is another point, we have enhanced ease of financial tracking. So the request that came out from NIFA to report on program level expenses, for us that was fairly easy, because in our organization, every educator and researcher has a primary program affiliation. So that meant we could very easily track the FTE expenses and other expenses back to that program, because it is a formal entity in our organization. And lastly, we have the ability to create multi-use reporting products because of that alignment between our own organizational structure and the way we represent that structure in the NIFA reporting system. So we can create multi-use products. On the left side of the screen, you see a little cutoff piece here. That's a very, very high level, rough overview of our own internal reporting system, where we collect participation records, activity records, images, testimonials, and other things, and also our annual program reports that we submit to USDA-NIFA. You can see on the right side of my screen a screenshot. It's both a Word document that's uploaded in our reporting system, and it also has additional information like output measures, outcome measures, a public value statement. And we put all this in our reporting system so that it can be used not only for the NIFA report, but also for other reporting purposes. So here you see a screenshot from the USDA-NIFA reporting portal. So that's a report, how it would look like there from that source, from our own reporting portal. But our communications professionals also take these reports and they make them into one-pagers. So that means that one-pager that we use to communicate to the public is aligning with what we're also saying to USDA-NIFA. And we're putting all these reports on our Wisconsin Extension Impact website. So these are publicly available. They're also heavily used by our local educators and by the local county office directors. For if somebody asks, hey, what's the water quality program all about? Then we can pull out these reports from multiple years that we submitted to NIFA to really show in a very concise way what we are doing. And lastly, we upload these reports also to the landgrant.org database, which is used for federal lobbying and federal advocacy. So there are great advantages of having this process, because we can really bring products into many different places, and we can multi-use the products and the sharing of the good work that our program managers are doing. So this is all I had prepared for our presentation. And now there's some space for questions if you have any. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
Thanks, Christian. We actually do have a question for you. Norma asked, can you talk about any challenges you may have encountered in getting the research side of your organization to agree on the critical issues?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, so in the federal report that we do it together with our College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. Casey Hilmer is managing that on the Cal side. So we work closely together. And shout out to her. She's been a great mentor for me, because I started this just a few years ago. So what we did is we worked very closely together when writing these critical issues. So we wrote them also broad enough so that they fit with the College of Life and Agricultural Sciences. And there are some critical issues that we only report against, and then there are some critical issues where we both report against. So it's a negotiation process, and we wrote those broad enough so that they fit both. And the good news is that we are working in the same area, so we didn't even need to stretch that much, because we try to work closely together with research and extension as one entity.
Awesome. I'm looking to see if you have any more questions. I have a lot of kudos for all three speakers. This is wonderful, guys. We did have a question about what's today, just extension related. So yes, we did want to focus on extension. As you all know, there have been some transition with our extension programs in reporting. So we definitely wanted to provide a little bit more guidance today for them. There will be an opportunity for us to do the same for research. We haven't forgot about you guys. But we did want to focus on that just to kind of ease a little bit of confusion, hopefully a little bit of angst with the upcoming reports. Again, I did remind everyone of the upcoming report deadlines. So please always visit the NRS website and resources for update information. We do have another question, Christian. I'm going to go ahead and read it for you. Do the program managers write the impact statements / results themselves? How many results do you enter per extension program in the annual report?
Great questions. So the first is, yes, the program managers are responsible for writing those. But that doesn't mean that, that they can't write with others, right? Depending on what programs they have, it's their job to basically create it, right? So how much writing they technically do or how much colleagues do that they work with, that's really up to them. We don't tell them how to do their job, but let's say, but if I'm the program manager of the land and water program, my responsibility is to submit a program report based on a outcome into the planning, into our system at the deadline, so that then I can bring it into the NIFA portal, so that then it can be reviewed and approved by the institute director. Internally, that's all an organic process, right? The program manager would work probably ideally with the institute director ahead of time, with different colleagues who bring information, with evaluators, with communication staff. So we're not micromanaging that. It's just that we have that really convenient point person, right? Who's ultimately, I can also always contact and say, hey, what's going on with the report? Or hey, let's talk about it. And so that's how they do. So that's how we do it. They write it, but then I enter it, and then the institute director greenlights it and reviews it. The other piece is we typically have one extension report per program per year. In, I think, 1 or 2 programs, we have 2. Because in some cases we want to highlight more than one thing, and also in general, because we're doing this work together with our research partner, there might be more reports in there, but typically it's 1.
Thank you. So I don't think we have any further questions, but if we do get those, we'll be sure to get them for you. I just want to thank you again so much for coming to do the presentation, as well as NIFA staff. I think it's been a really good experience. We have a lot of feedback, positive, so we want to continue to host these types of events for you all. I also want to touch on the comments about office hours and the chat and things like that. Certainly, we're open to modifications of those things. As we've stated in the past, if you see a need for office hours specific to reporting, like we did with the financial report in December, please let us know. Just send us an email at nrs@usda.gov, and we will host an office hour so you can come in and out and ask any questions specific to, say, results or annual report or plan of work, whatever's coming up. So we definitely want to give you that space. So thank you guys again. We look forward to seeing you all in March, and the presentations will go out today not today, after they are made compliant, they'll go out along with the recording and the invitation for the next webinar. See you all in March. Thank you.